Hello, welcome to another video. This video is about making small talk. In this video, we're going to learn how to use certain phrases, what we can talk about when making small talk, and so on. But first, what is small talk? Well, small talk is just a conversation about everyday topics, unimportant things that we do with the purpose of connecting with people, getting to know them better. It is a huge part of English language and English culture in general. Making small talk is something that you do with everybody, with friends, family, colleagues, and other people, with people you know well, and with people that you don't know very well too. However, it can be kind of tricky in some situations, especially when you get nervous about this kind of a situation. You may be thinking about things you should say, things you shouldn't say, how to continue the conversation, and so on and so forth. So today we're going to learn what phrases we can use to start a conversation, to find a common ground with the other person, to talk about certain things. We'll discuss certain topics you can talk about when making small talk, such as the weather, hobbies, free time activities, and so on. First, let's see how we can start such a conversation. Well, let's imagine that you are about to start a conversation with somebody that you know. What is the first thing you would say or ask? Well, yes, of course, there would be a greeting. You would say hi, hello, or whatever. And then you would probably ask, how are you? How can we answer a question like this? Well, yes, most commonly we would say, I'm fine, thanks for asking, or I'm great, thank you. What do you do then? Then you ask a question. You say, how about you? Or how are you? How's it going with you? And so on. Another thing you can ask is, what have you been up to lately? What have you been up to lately? How could you answer a question like this if somebody asks you? Don't forget to use the same kind of grammar. The question is in present perfect tense, so you could answer using present perfect or present perfect continuous. For example, I've been working a lot recently, or I've been traveling a lot, and so on. Now, another thing you can ask, especially if you already know something about the other person, you can say, how is? Start the question with how is or how are. For example, how's your family? How's your wife? How are the children? How is work? How is university? And so on. You can also ask about their past. For example, how was? How was your trip? How was the meeting? How was work? How was the exam? And so on. This is a great conversation starter because it allows the other person to give an answer in detail. Always, no matter what the situation is, don't forget to ask a follow-up question. Don't forget to show that you're listening and always add more information. This is something that actually shows the other person that you're interested in the conversation. And it is easier to get a conversation going if you do things like these. Next, let's say that you really don't know the person very well. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're a new employee, you want to get to know other people. What can you say? How can you start a conversation with them? Well, you can always start by mentioning something in your environment. If you're at work, talk about work. For example, you can comment on the work you've been doing. You can say, I can't believe how busy we are today. Can you? Or if it's really quiet, you can say, I can't believe how quiet it is today. And so on. If somebody tells you this or asks you this, what can you say? Well, mostly you can agree, disagree, or maybe say what you think about the situation. For example, yes, I know we're really swamped. Swamped meaning we're really, really busy today. Or, yeah, it's been dead, hasn't it? Dead here meaning it's been really quiet, like there's nothing to do. It's kind of boring, you can say also. Or you can simply ask your colleague, how's your day been? How's your week been? If somebody asks you this, what can you say? Well, you can say, it's been a long day, or it's been really hectic recently, or the time's flown by, and so on. You can say, my week's been great so far, thanks. Again, don't forget to ask a follow-up question. You could always say, how about you? And so on. Now, let's imagine that you have been working in a company for a while, but you've noticed a person that you can't really recognize. What can you tell them? Well, you can say, how long have you worked here, for example? Or if the person is new in a company, you can say, what did you do before this? Or if the person has been working here for a while, ask, what are you currently working on? And so on and so forth. Now, another thing that is pretty much always a good conversation starter is starting a conversation about the weather. Why? Because it is something that is in your environment. Everybody is aware of the weather. So how can you do that? You can always say, it's a beautiful day today, isn't it? Or, can you believe all the rain we've been having? It's awful. Add your own comment, of course, ask a follow-up question. You don't always have to talk about the current weather. You can also talk about the future weather. For example, you can say, looks like it's going to rain on the weekend. Do you have any plans? Now, this is great because you're talking about the future weather. You're also asking about a person's plan or plans. Or you can also change the topic of the conversation at the same time by talking about their free time, which is, again, a great thing to do. Now, when we talk about free time and hobbies, if we want to start a conversation about this or change the topic of the conversation, what can we ask? What can we say? Well, we can always say, have you got much planned for the weekend? Or do you have any plans for the weekend? When we say the weekend here, we mean the upcoming weekend, the first one in the future. Now, we don't always have to talk about the future. We can also talk about a past weekend. So you can say, what did you do over the weekend? Meaning the last weekend, and so on. If you don't want to talk about a weekend, you can simply ask, what do you usually do in your free time? Now, when a person answers, always add some kind of a comment or ask a follow-up question. Let's say maybe a person likes bowling, for example. You can say, I don't know anything about bowling. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Or can you tell me, how do you play it? Or where do you play it? How often do you go bowling? Who do you play with? And so on and so forth. Now, you can also ask a question starting with, have you? And then add any kind of an activity that you think might be done in a free time. For example, have you read any books recently? Have you seen any good movies lately? And so on and so forth. These are all great conversation starters. And I know maybe there are too many phrases to memorize them all at once. Try to choose 3 to 5 phrases which you would realistically be able to use in some kind of situations. So try to practice them next. Use any opportunity that you get. For example, if you have a friend or a family member who lives abroad, start a conversation next time using some of these phrases. If you're having some online lessons, of course, then practice using them at the beginning of the lessons too. Use every opportunity that you get, and that is the best way to memorize them all and to use them spontaneously in the end. If you want to learn more phrases, more useful phrases that you can use in everyday conversations, you can sign up for lessons with us and we'll be happy to help you. Also, if you enjoyed this lesson, sign up and you'll be notified about every upcoming lesson in the future. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.